Hey everyone, thank you for joining us today and welcome to our webinar, The Mobile App Security Risks Federal Agencies Can't Ignore. My name is Dana Duque. I'm a Senior Account Manager here at Forinc, joined by Quokka's VP and GM of Public Sector and Asia Pacific region, Chris Gogol. For a bit of housekeeping at the top, this webinar will be recorded and will be distributed in the next week or so. And we also ask that any questions are written in the Q&A section during the presentation. We should have a few minutes at the end to go through any questions you all may have. But before we get into Chris's presentation about the importance of mobile app vetting for national security, I wanted to give a quick background about Forinc and Quokka. So Forinc is a public sector technology provider partnering with some of the top IT vendors in the public sector space. Quokka is the first and longest standing mobile application security provider to the US federal government, delivering both mobile app vetting of devices and automated mobile application security testing. Chris is here to break down emerging threats, highlight how new legislation is shaping mobile security requirements, and share best practices for evaluating apps before they reach agency devices. Chris, I'll go ahead and pass it over to you to dive in.
Yeah, thanks, Dana. Excited to be here today, and thank you for helping to host this webinar today on this interesting topic. So, we were initially talking about things that we can highlight here about mobile app security, and I'd been getting a lot of questions from the field and customers and other folks I'm talking to about this emerging conflict in the Middle East and how this is affecting mobile security and how mobile security is being impacted in terms of how are attackers, whether it's Iranian or other, attacking our mobile fleets, and what are they using them for? What should I be worried about as a federal agency practitioner? So, great topic to talk about today to kind of bring up to speed some of the things that we've seen in the industry, and kind of give some best practices as well that we have to keep thinking about as we're looking at our current mobile strategy for, let's say, the next few months or for this year, but also moving forward into the follow-on years, because some of these things aren't that easy to flip a switch on, and start doing tomorrow, and require some forethought and some planning. So excited to get into it today. Some quick background for myself, Chris Gogol. I'm about going on 12 years now at Quokka, working with our federal government customers in the mobile app security space for about that whole period. So I've got a lot of background working with our customers, the people that are on the ground with our tools in this space, and hope to share some of that insight here today. So jumping right into it, first question that we've gotten a lot in the last few months is how are the militaries around the world leveraging mobile and mobile applications in their practices and in their efforts, whatever it might be on our side or the other side. And what we see and what I've seen across the different spaces I've worked in is a couple different layers here of how mobile is being used. And you'll see the tagline at the bottom there, mobile apps as weapons of war, because now we're seeing not only mobile and the threats that are coming from mobile being leveraged, let's say for surveillance or business intelligence or whatever it might be, but actually at the bottom there you'll see also for targeting of assets, whether that be cyber assets or physical assets from the people that are using the mobile applications. So where does this problem start? Well, it starts at the top level there, the large scale intelligence collection. So as you're familiar, you have a mobile device, whether it's a work device, a personal device, or one that does both. There are a mix of personal and work applications that you use on your devices. So what do those applications do? Well, they collect and distribute a large amount of information, a lot of which is sensitive. So all for very legitimate purposes for the most times. My email needs access to my calendar to sync up with my Outlook, whatever it might be. But there are also a lot of personal applications that you might have, whether it's social media, tools like scanning in PDFs or documents, VPNs, other things that are accessing all different bits of your data. And when combined together through advertisers and data distributors, that data can be combined into a rich data set about each individual person and about each individual device. So we've seen in the past through publications, through reporters like Brian Krebs, that that data that's sucked up by our mobile applications and put into these data rooms can be accessed by people to, like, for example, track where I live. And they know I work at this location. They see a device going in and out of that location. They also see that device going in and out of a home every morning, so they can tie the two together and, really create a profile of each individual person, their habits for, travel, their habits for communication, which other devices, which other people are they talking to, their habits for, anything they might do in terms of like food or, friends or, hobbies. All that information can be profiled using those mobile applications as a source. And of course, the closer those applications get to your work life, the more serious the information, because then it's not only your personal life that's being collected and sucked up and being profiled at large scale, but also your work documents or your work contacts or your work networks. Where am I connecting? What SSIDs are my Wi-Fi networks inside my office building? All this different information, which then becomes an even greater problem if it's collected and sent up to the cloud and profiled together. Um, is more and more important, especially if you're bringing those devices into the workforce, whether that's through a bring your own device model or a different model that you have with your devices. So that large scale intelligence collection is then enabling that middle layer, the monitoring of users. So not only can you identify people, but you can track them. So when you're looking at that data, it's not a one snapshot of that data that you can get access to and then get a spot in time check of where this person is and who they are and who they talk to, but you can monitor those people over time through those same data feeds. And you can even get more targeted. You can deliver specific things to specific users to track them even closer. So what we see is that building on top of that large scale data collection, we see monitoring of people happening over time. And then what does that boil down to? What boils down to targeting when something wants to trigger off an action. So if I know where everyone is at any time, the people that I'm interested in, I can then target them for either a physical means or cyber means. Compromise that device because I know it's going to be traveling into a specific location where I know I need to connect to that network, or target that device because I know it has specific files or assets that I need to extract from it. So this is all enabled by that large scale monitoring, which comes from the use of unvetted mobile applications on our devices. And I'm going to dive into a couple different examples now of where we've seen this publicly available information in this kind of realm here. And the first is actually coming from a Google threat report, coming from one of the Israel-Hamas wars, which involved Iran. And breaking down the different tactics that the Iranians were using in the cyber world, one of the key takeaways of this campaign was that mobile apps were a key component in the operational toolkit of Iran in the cyber actions that they performed. And it's continued to say there are ongoing efforts to collect intelligence about targets of interest. So the apps are feeding them information, which they're collecting intelligence about, people or cyber assets that they want to follow up and target. So this specific report also talks about, an example of how they distributed a copy of the missile warning app that Israel has that's distributed to their citizens to warn them when a missile was coming into their specific neighborhood or area. Now, the Iranians, created a copy of that application, which included special, collection capabilities, intelligence gathering capabilities, and were able to distribute it inside Israel. So these applications that are being downloaded, often, especially in times of war, the heightened interest in downloading such an app is greater. And if you're not double checking, which application you're clicking or which store link you're clicking, it's very easy to understand how someone might download the wrong application that's being pushed to them by some of these efforts. So again, an example of how you could, in a case, find these applications and find they're not the real app, find out that those applications have extra capabilities tied to them if you're reviewing every application that gets onto a phone. Second example, more recent. This is an article from Politico in March of this year when the war started, and this is looking at the other side. So we looked at the Iranian side of how they were using mobile applications and mobile threats in their efforts. Well, this is looking at Israeli and US based efforts. So Israel took a similar approach in which they targeted a prevalent prayer application that was popular inside Iran. So as the war started, they were able to hack that application and distribute notifications and messages directly to the citizens of Iran, powered by, obviously the Israeli intelligence. So you could spread disinformation to the populace directly. You could spread, false information or just simply messaging that you want the population to hear, all through a common application that's sitting on the devices of the citizens. And from the flip side of that, there was also talk in here about how the US based groups have then used similar applications and purchased that distributed data, specifically location data from those similar prayer apps. So, if we go back to that first slide here of monitoring of users and targeting of users, well, this is a great example of how you can leverage a specific type of application and target specific types of people that you want to track or monitor. So if you flip the script and think about how can we similarly be attacked, well, in the DC area, we've got, a couple of unique restaurants, we've got a couple unique types of chains and, gyms, other things like that. Obviously, the sports teams, if they wanted to collect information about, federal workers in a specific area, well, they could also target similar applications that are popular in our area and collect information such as location or other data by targeting and purchasing that data or stealing it and harvesting it from your devices. So this, hammers home the point. We have to be aware of where this data is going when we're using these applications, especially if those applications are going to be on a device that comes into the workforce or comes into a base or comes into the office, because then the level of data that's available to that device rises. Again, what networks am I connected to? What Bluetooth devices do I see? What other devices do I see near me? Which is extremely important, if you want to target someone that's going to be near a high-ranking official or something similar to that. So we've seen a lot of approaches out there in the world, and we'll talk about this in the best practices in just a minute, which don't fully address this threat. They focus on the work applications and the work data that those applications are running on, but they don't focus on the device as a whole and all of those other personal applications and work applications that are sitting on that same device, being carried in your same pocket, going into your base or going into your office with you, which are just as, if not more important, when we're looking at the grand scope of things. And so just finally here on the current state as we see it, just in the last year alone, through different agencies that we work with, we found in different cases, not only apps from the App Store containing some negative things, but apps being developed by government agencies, which include Chinese or Russian code inside the government applications. So not only the apps from the App Store, but the apps that we're producing, they're also hacking into and finding a way into, which just shows the scale of this problem. It's not something that's been heavily focused on, which fortunately is changing now by Congress and other policymakers. So the problem has just risen to a point where it's not only the apps we're downloading onto our device, but the apps that we're pushing out ourselves are including some of this data tracking and monitoring capabilities from our adversaries. And then you look at the flip side of that. Often when we first talk to a practitioner who's new to the field or someone that's not familiar with mobile security, well, they'll say, "Hey, isn't Google and Apple already doing this? Like, they provide a trusted store for me. I can just download whatever I want from there." Well, not true, because they're a global marketplace and a global store which does not keep up to the standards of the federal government. They're making a store for the average citizen, global citizen, not a U.S. federal worker. So just to hammer home that point, we did a recent study internally at Quokka about the top 100 business and tooling applications on the Apple App Store. So forget social media apps, forget TikTok, forget all those types of applications. We filtered all those out already. We looked at the business applications, the tools like your VPNs, your scanners, all those things like that. And 1 in 4 of them, 25% of them, were sending data to either Russia or China directly from those applications that you download from the marketplace of the top most popular applications that you might view when you open up your store in the first place. So we've also seen these applications be prevalent on the deployments that we have with the federal government. When we first get out there, we connect our technology and find that many of these same applications are sending data directly to our adversaries, which means if we go back to the top of, hey, they can collect data from, data collectors and all those other people. Well, they don't have to if we're sending it directly to them from our devices. So this is a kind of in-your-face problem that we see prevalent because people are looking at the App Store as a trusted space and not double checking. So, painting the picture here, I think uh, fortunately, as I mentioned, we've gotten a little bit farther this year in terms of what the Congress is focusing on and what they're doing. Last year we saw some support from the Homeland Security Committee, looking at mobile application vetting and raising its importance in terms of services that the government offers. Well, this year we also see a new bill being introduced in January from two congressmen that are called the Securing Federal Devices from Chinese Applications Act. Well, isn't that great? We finally have something going out there to help enforce some of these things and make sure that our federal devices aren't sending data directly to the government of China or another nation. So, you see the quote from the congressman on the right-hand side. If an app is controlled by the CCP, it does not belong on a US government device. That's very, very, very smart and very straightforward and helps to address that problem we see on the previous slide here of, 1/4 of the top 100 business and tooling applications sending data there. So we can address that problem straight away with new legislation like this. And I sure hope it passes and moves forward quickly. So what can we do as practitioners now to kind of help address these problems again, today and moving forward? So the first thing, I see when we talk to customers is the deployment model, because that's going to drive everything that you can do on the devices that are used for your work. So you have different options there. You can do a fully managed corporate device. The government buys it, distributes it to you. They can see everything, they control everything. Obviously, that's a little bit more restrictive and not as scalable and more costly, of course, for the government. So we've seen a lot of organizations move towards a middle model called corporate owned, personally enabled, or COPE, which enables the government either to provide the device or you to bring the device. They manage and maintain the device, and they can control all the work applications, but not the personal applications. But critically, the key here is in most cases, you can still see the personal applications on that device, which enables you to have full visibility across the device. So even if you don't control that personal app right off the bat, you can see that it's there. You can do your security testing of it and alerting on it, and either warn the user to remove it or take over management of it and block it. So that's the kind of corporate owned, personally enabled device model. We see that on iOS called the supervised model. And then there's the pure BYOD model. Bring something in. We don't have to manage the whole thing. Or you have a device which the MDM or the management only sees the work side and doesn't see the personal side at all. And this is where I see kind of the biggest gap in terms of the security posture here is if you're moving towards this model, even if you're using like a hypervisor to secure your work data that's running off the device and your work data is not on the phone, well, all of that doesn't matter really if you're looking at the threats that we looked at the beginning of this presentation. They're looking at the data collected from your personal applications and work applications from the device that's being carried with you to your sensitive work locations and other places that you go. They can still profile you, they can still target your personal data, and can still target your device that you're doing all your work on through those personal applications and through the data that you're leaking from those personal applications. So I would caution from the deployments we see to not move forward towards a full bring your own device model that does not have visibility into the personal applications. I think that is critical to be able to be protected from these type of threats. Ensure that you don't have Chinese applications on your device. Even if they're on the personal side, they don't belong there. And protect that device as a whole in your work environment. So that's the deployment model. And again, that can take a while to change over. If you've chosen a model, to move to another model is not a simple undertaking. It take 6 months, a year, 2 years, depending on the size of your organization, but something to look at. And if you're looking for guidance, NIST actually has a great document about COPE as well that you can reference. That comes out of the NIST Center for Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. and available online for you to reference to. And that includes, your deployment, the types of tools you need, and includes, of course, the second bullet there, the need to pre-vet applications before deploying. So if you have your work applications, scanning them before you push them out can help catch many of these threats before you actually deploy them, and prevent these threats from even activating in the first place. So that's a great practice that you should, that guide talks about, and can be achieved through many different tools in the space, including tools that Quokka offers. Tied to that, though, is the monitoring. So as you may be aware, applications update on average about 20 to 30 times per year. So if you do pre-vet that application and you scan it before you deploy it, but you're not monitoring every update that application does, well, you're getting 1 in 20 or 1 in 30 view into the security posture of that app and of that device. So being able to monitor all of the configuration changes that are on these applications is critical, because you can have a safe app that gets published in the App Store or on your device for a year or 2 years or 3 years, but something changes and it gets updated, and all of a sudden the new version is stealing data, adding capabilities that you didn't review or didn't approve. So that ability to monitor those changes in those applications is critical. And if you achieve some of these things, that you're choosing the right deployment model, you're pre-vetting your applications, and you're monitoring all the applications on the devices, well, now you have full visibility into the device, a supervised device, with full visibility across the work and personal applications. You can ensure that you have a complete picture of that phone, not only of the work side, but of the work and personal side, to understand the full threat of that device. You get proactive protection by pre-scanning these applications. You can prevent threats from actually reaching the device in the first place, instead of trying to respond to a threat that you see live on the device. And you get your zero trust ready deployment model through your monitoring continuously. So if you're scanning every piece of software on the device, well, guess what? You're not trusting every single app that gets put on that device. You're not trusting every update that gets put on the device by default. You're scanning it first to validate it. So you become zero trust ready through that model. So, what does this look like? I mentioned the NIST COPE document. This is a view of the diagram that's in that document, slightly modified for just visibility. So this is showing kind of the different tooling that you might need to implement a secure COPE model. So you see your MDM, UEM, you see your mobile threat defense, you see your mobile threat intelligence, your application vetting, your XDR, all of those things. And we worked with NIST on that document and included some of our technologies into the sample architecture they put out. And since then, we've continued to work and update that architecture with different partners. So if you are a Microsoft shop, like many of our federal government agencies are, they provide a lot of tools that fill in that diagram. So you can think of your UEM or MDM as Microsoft Intune. You can think of your XDR or SIEM as Microsoft Sentinel. They provide a capability called Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, which provides a mobile threat defense agent, which is integrated into the Intune agent. So you don't have to deploy two separate things, and they're often included and packaged with each other. So you may already be paying for those tools together. And well, where you fit in is that application vetting and mobile threat intelligence piece. So those pieces with the Qs are Quokka's capabilities that fill in the remainder of the picture. If you're already on Microsoft, you're already paying for these things, you can complete the picture with Quokka's capabilities here. And there's a great partnership we've built out with them. We are a MISA member there, and have a great Better Together filling the gaps integration, which has been validated by the Intune team and others, which enables you to cheaply and cost effectively build on top of your Microsoft stack and fill in those missing pieces of application vetting and mobile threat intelligence ongoing to monitor continuously the devices that are deployed on your Intune and Defender deployments. So what does this look like at the end of the day? Well, when you combine these two technologies together, you're getting coverage again for every application that gets installed or added to a device. You get coverage for every application you want to add to the device through your application vetting. And you get all this without any additional agents to deploy. So a common strain that we see in mobility managers in the government is actually running their security tools. You know, it takes a lot of time and effort to actually make sure they're running, make sure they're on, make sure they're activated on every device. Well, with this approach, you're not adding another agent, you're building on top of what Intune already has. So you can do it all via API off your devices, which means no access to government data being sent to our tool, no user disruption, no battery drain, nothing like that, and always on security because it doesn't rely on our own agent being installed. It's installed with that Intune agent already. So it's always on and always up without any of that maintenance that you need to do. And of course, over time, you can set your own risk-based policies there to get alerts when things fall out of range, and then use your Microsoft tools to correct them. So whether again that's warning the user, blocking an application, or performing some other update, all of that is within the same model. And of course, this is done off the device, so it's also just cheaper off the bat. It's more cost effective to do than some of your traditional mobile threat defense approaches. So, I was talking to a client just yesterday where they, looking at, their spend across, the MDM, MTD, application vetting, and kind of realizing, especially in iOS deployments where, they're putting a security tool inside an app container, which is how Apple and Google now treat their individual applications. Well, if I'm putting a security tool inside of an app container, is it really a security tool for my device? And I could take a different approach and get security visibility across all of the app containers through a technology like QScout's technology without installing something on my devices, which might be more cost effective and more fitting for the model of mobile and how the operating system works. So food for thought. We're always here to provide you some help and assistance as you're working through your mobile security strategies. And I'll be here and around, and just want to thank you for spending the time with me today to hear a little bit about the ongoing threats that we're seeing and some of the best practices that we can offer to take care of them. So, Dana, thanks for the time. If there's any questions, I'm happy to address them. If not, we'll get back to your days.
Thank you, Chris. That was a great presentation. We really appreciate it. I'm not seeing any questions. Let me check one more time. I haven't seen any questions. But if there are any further questions or interest, we'll be sending out a follow-up email with contact information in the recording as well. So look out for that. And yeah, we appreciate it. And I hope everybody enjoys the rest of their afternoon.
All right. Thank you, Dana. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.